Good morning. Now we'll discuss about the functions of the President of India. Already we have seen certain points. That is with respect to the certain articles that are related to the President of India. Now we'll look into the functions. So being the head of the nation, the President of India has been given enormous powers. But as we know, the President is the de jure head. All the functions that are performed by the President of India are done only on the advice that is made by the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. But they are executed on the name of the President. Without the President consent, these will not be implemented. And being the head, the President of India has enormous functions like executive powers, legislative powers, judicial powers, military powers, diplomatic powers, veto powers, financial powers. So many powers are there. But kindly remember, whatever we are going to speak, everything is happening only on the advice of the Council of Ministers, headed by the Prime Minister. Kindly remember another point. In our initial days, I was using a word called cabinet. And we understood what is the meaning of the cabinet during those days itself. But remember, the Constitution has used the word Council of Ministers, but the Council of Ministers will come together very, very rarely. Hence, all the decisions are taken in the cabinet. And that cabinet is headed by the Prime Minister. That is the reason the cabinet is considered to be a very, very powerful body with respect to the India. First, you take a decision in the cabinet and inform the same thing to the President of India. That is called advice. And the President is expected to act on such advice. So whatever I am going to speak now, all the things are happening in the same format. Now let us understand one after the other. We'll try to see here. Now let me open the document for you and we have a discussion. Look at this. So here, if you can remember the articles, that's okay. But otherwise, when I am going for the review, then I'll be touching the articles. Look at this. The President, kindly remember, I was talking something about the Parliament some time back. When I used the word Parliament, kindly remember, I used the words like, just a moment. Yeah. So when I said Parliament, I said this is the Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha plus the President. So these are the things I told you during this time, right? But kindly remember one point. President is a part of the Parliament. President is not a member in the Parliament. That is the reason why when I am talking about the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, I am talking with respect to excluding the President of India. Okay, in 545 and 245, we have not included the President. But being the part of the Parliament, the President is asked to perform certain duties by the Constitution of India. Now look at this. Article 85 I'm talking about. The President summons, prorogues both the houses of the Parliament and dissolves the Lok Sabha. Now let me come to here. So with respect to each and every point here, very slowly, look at this. So we are using the word that is called the summon. But what do you mean by this is summon? See here, every time you will come across with certain words here in the newspaper, the Parliament session is going on. The Parliament session is going to be started from so and so date. The Parliament session comes to an end by so and so date. What do you mean by this? We have the representatives in the Parliament in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Through some procedures, they became the members of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. But kindly remember, at every given point of time, the Parliament session will not happen. Session in the sense, in simple terms, it is called the meeting. But instead of using the word meeting, we use the word session. And when it comes to the session, only during that particular time, the members of the parliament, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, will meet within the parliament. Otherwise, they don't come. Because they are the representatives of the people, they are expected to be there in their respective constituencies, and they are supposed to work for the welfare of the people. But whenever the session is started, the parliament meeting is started, they are expected to go to the parliament and speak about the problems of the people and try to resolve the issues that are present in the country. So for this reason, the parliament session will happen now and then. Kindly see here. When I'm talking about the parliament session, last year, what happened? This year, in the month of November, the parliament session has begun on November 24th. And from November 24th, they started functioning, and they functioned up to December 23rd. Meaning, for a period of 1 month, the parliament has functioned. The parliament session went on. So, whenever you start a parliament, the constitution has used a word called summon. So, whenever we come across with the word summon, it is nothing but that is the beginning of the parliament session. Okay, can you see here? This is the beginning. This is the meaning of this. Summon means beginning of the parliament session, and once you begin the parliament session, that will continue for a period of time. But what is the period of time? We are not exactly clear. Again, that will be decided by the President of India on the advice of the Prime Minister. That is the reason why the session may go on for 1 day, or 2 days, or 3 days, or 4 days, or 1 week, or 1 month, or so-called the 2-3 months. Everything will be decided by the cabinet. Accordingly, the president will be issuing the orders. Next one. So summon means we have understood that it is the beginning of the parliament session. Similarly, when I'm coming across the word prorogue, the meaning is nothing but ending of the parliament session. Ending in the sense, so the meetings of the parliament will stop, and the members are expected to go back to their respective constituencies. So they are supposed to work for the welfare of the people. So hence they will be coming back. But the words summon and prorogue are important for me in this particular context. Summon means beginning of a session. Prorogue means ending of a session. Hope I am clear. These are the very frequently asked questions. Kindly remember this. Now, what do you mean by this again? For example, here, so this is the summon, and it will continue for a period of time. Then we are going for the prorogue. And after prorogue, again over a period of time, again we are going for the summoning. And again after a period of time, again we will go for the prorogue. So these are the general things that will happen. Look at this. Here also let me add it, SUMMON, summon, and prorogue. So this is how exactly the parliament will function. Summon, prorogue. Again summon, again prorogue. Meaning parliament session begins, parliament session ends. Again parliament session begins, again the parliament session will end. Okay. Now I would like to tell you one important word with respect to the so-called the prorogue. With respect to the word session. Whenever I am using the word session, what is the meaning of this? It is very, very simple. Session is nothing but number of days. Number of days between summon and prorogue. This is called session for me. Hopefully I'm clear. The number of days between summon and prorogue is called session. That's the reason how many days the parliament will function, that all depends on the advisor that is given by the cabinet. That is the reason I say session may be for 1 day, session may be for 1 week, session may be for 1 month, or session may be for 3 months. And whenever I use the word session, it is the number of days between summon and prorogue. Kindly remember, when I am using the word number of days here, it also includes the holidays that are present during that time. And most of the times we have seen the parliament does not function during holidays. So every Saturday, Sunday is a holiday, and during other festivals, there is a holiday for the parliament. So on those days, the parliament does not function. But even including those holidays put together, it is called a session. Hopefully, I'm clear. The number of days between summon and prorogue is called a session. So if you want, I can write it here. Right, this is called the session. Am I clear? Very, very important. Now, this is the meaning of this. Similarly, so we have come to an end, and this is called the prorogue. And see here, so these are the number of days. So there is a gap between the prorogue and summon. Is that okay? And the number of days between summon and prorogue, number of days between summon and prorogue, this is called recess. Kindly remember these words, please. Number of days between summon and prorogue is called session, and the number of days between prorogue and summon is called recess. Whenever I use the word recess, it is the rest period. And during the recess, the parliament does not function. The members don't go to the parliament, and they don't meet in the parliament. No discussions will be held, no bills will be introduced, no voting, no proceedings, nothing will happen. But whatever you see in the parliament, sometimes it will happen. That happens only during the session and not during the recess. Hopefully, I'm clear. Next one. Another point I would like to add to you here. Sometimes you'll see very frequently in India, at least 3 times in a year, at least 3 times in a year, the parliament session will happen. So it happens like we use the words budget session, we use the word monsoon session, we also use the word winter session. Meaning very recently, winter session of the parliament was concluded. Winter session of the parliament was prorogued. And the next session, it is going to be in the month of February, and that session is called budget session. Kindly remember, the constitution has not used the words budget session, winter session or monsoon session. So this is for our convenience, we are using it only to indicate. So this is the period of meeting of the parliament. Am I clear? Next. But the constitution has given another condition that when we have the parliament, how many times the parliament session should happen, or how many times the parliament should meet every year. The constitution made it very, very clear. The gap between any 2 sessions of the parliament, the gap between any 2 consecutive sessions of the parliament should not be more than 6 months. Very, very, very important. In the simplest words, just now I told you what is the meaning of the session and what is the meaning of the recess. Now let me use in this terminology, the recess period should not be more than 6 months. Hope you are getting it. Kindly remember very clearly, whenever I am using the word recess here, it is the last working day of the parliament and the first working day of the next session of the parliament. And this gap should not be more than 6 months. For example, here, just now I told you, our recent parliament session was concluded on December 23rd. And from the December 23rd, so today we are in the period of recess. From December 23rd, 6 months will be taken, and within that 6 months, at any time, the parliament session may be started. That may happen today, tomorrow, or after 10 days, or after 1 month. But the general procedures in India is that once the winter session is over, next session will be started in the month of February. So we are starting a session in less than 6 months. Hence, that is not the violation of the constitution. Meaning, constitution is asking the representatives of the people to come and meet very frequently to discuss and resolve the issues that are present in the country. That is the basic function. That is the basic idea. Am I clear? So today we understood the meanings of the session. We also understood the meaning of the prorogue, summon and prorogue. And we also understood what is the meaning of the session and what is the meaning of the recess. And we also understood that the gap between any 2 consecutive sessions should not be more than 6 months. So this is what we have understood. Now let me go ahead with further discussion. Now, look at this. So this is what I told you. President is a part of the parliament. President summons the parliament. President prorogues the parliament. And now you know the meaning of each and every word. Next one, I have another. I'm sorry. Next one is the president dissolves the Lok Sabha. Kindly here, if you can observe very clearly, when I am talking about the summon and prorogue, the president summons and prorogues the parliament. But in this particular statement, I am saying that the president dissolves the Lok Sabha. In the brackets, kindly read this one. Rajya Sabha is a permanent house and it cannot be dissolved. So this is one point for me. Now, so let me tell you certain things. When I'm saying the president dissolves the Lok Sabha, what is the meaning of this? Kindly see here, whenever we are using the word dissolve or dissolution, all the members who are present in the Lok Sabha, they will lose the membership. In Lok Sabha, we know that there are 543 elected members and 2 nominated members. Everybody will be losing the membership. And once the parliament is dissolved, election must be conducted. And the election will be conducted for all the 543 seats. This is the basic idea with respect to the dissolution. Meaning, once Lok Sabha is dissolved means election has to be conducted. And in India, if you remember, the elections are conducted every 5 years. Meaning, the Lok Sabha is dissolved every 5 years. But when it comes to the Rajya Sabha, you have seen the statement just now, Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. Rajya Sabha is a permanent house and it cannot be dissolved. What do you mean by this? See, the basic purpose of the Rajya Sabha that is made as a permanent house is this. Even in the absence of the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha can function. There may be certain issues which are considered to be very, very important and which are supposed to be discussed on the floor of the parliament. But if the Lok Sabha is dissolved, if the Lok Sabha is not there, even then, the discussion should not be stopped and the discussion should be held. For that reason, Rajya Sabha was made a permanent house. Hence, in the absence of the Lok Sabha, if you want to discuss anything, the president may summon Rajya Sabha also. What do you understand by this? Meaning, when I have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, president need not summon both the houses together. President need not prorogue both the houses together. Different houses may be summoned on different dates. Different houses may be prorogued on different dates. Am I clear? Most of the times both are summoned together, both are prorogued together. But it is not a compulsion. President has been given a free hand on the advice of the cabinet. Accordingly, different dates may be coming into picture. But in the complete absence of the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha may be summoned and Rajya Sabha may be prorogued by the President of India. Am I clear? That's the reason why we will never see the Rajya Sabha where the election for all the 233 seats are conducted together, except for the first time in the year 1952. And when it comes to Rajya Sabha, I will explain you more points. But whenever I am saying the permanent house, kindly remember, permanent house means it is not subjected to dissolution. If I use the word dissolution, I am talking in terms of all the members are losing the membership and the fresh election for all the seats will be conducted. but it will never happen for the Rajya Sabha. But when it comes to Rajya Sabha, the Rajya Sabha elections are held every 2 years. Every 2 years means it is a biannual elections. In the sense, out of the total members of the Rajya Sabha, 1/3 members will retire at the end of every second year. Meaning, at the end of every second year, 1/3 vacancies will be created in the Rajya Sabha, and only for those 1/3 vacancies, the election will be conducted by the Election Commission, and the new people, new 1/3 members will be elected to the Rajya Sabha. And from the date of election, each Rajya Sabha member will continue for a period of 6 years. Kindly remember, 6 years. Very important. When it comes to Lok Sabha members' term is 5 years. Lok Sabha term is also 5 years. Lok Sabha members' term is also 5 years. Meaning, because we are conducting elections for Lok Sabha every 5 years, there is a necessity to dissolve the Lok Sabha. Hence, Lok Sabha term 5 years, Lok Sabha members' term is also 5 years. But when it comes to Rajya Sabha member term is 6 years. Kindly remember, Rajya Sabha member's term is 6 years, but Rajya Sabha does not have any term because it is a permanent house. Hopefully, I'm clear. Kindly remember these points. Very, 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 very important. Now, let me go ahead. I'll open the document to you and we'll have a discussion further. Look at this. Apart from this, the President summons the joint session of the Parliament. On day one itself, we have understood what is the meaning of the joint session. What is the meaning of the joint session? We have understood. Now, kindly remember the joint session is mentioned in the article number 108. Kindly see it. I would like to add just one point to you. I told you already in the previous classes what is the meaning of the joint session. Joint session will be summoned only when there is a disagreement between the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And if this disagreement is happening, only on the ordinary bill, then only we are going for the joint session. I'll show you the respective articles over a period of time during our review session. But otherwise, remember, the joint session is exclusively related only to the ordinary bills. With respect to money bills and constitution amendment bills, there is no provision for the joint session. But in the history of India so far, 3 times the joint session was held. So there was a deadlock, there was a disagreement between both the houses of the Parliament. Then the President had to go for the joint session of the Parliament. And that joint session is mentioned under article number 108 of the Indian Constitution. Am I clear? Now let me show you the incidents or the times when exactly the joint session was held in India. I'll open the document now. Come on, have a look at here. Look at this. Now, here. So far, joint sessions were conducted for 3 times. Look at this. 1, 2, 3. When it comes to the Dowry Prohibition Bill of 1960, the Lok Sabha did not agree to the amendments made by the Rajya Sabha. A joint session was held on May 6, 1961. Meaning there was a disagreement between Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha with respect to the Dowry Prohibition Bill. And for the first time that was held on May 6, 1961, the joint session, and the bill was passed in the joint session. Second one, look at this. The Banking Service Commission Repeal Bill of 1977. The Rajya Sabha rejected the bill after it was passed in the Lok Sabha, and a joint sitting was held in 1978. And in both the cases, kindly remember, in the first case of 1961 and also in the year 1978, the bill was passed in the joint session. Kindly remember one important thing here. The advantage with the Lok Sabha is the numerical strength. The number is bigger and larger in the Lok Sabha. So obviously it's an advantage for them. So to clear the bills in the joint session. Next, Prevention of a Terrorism Bill of 2002. This bill was passed by the passed by the Lok Sabha, but it was rejected by the Rajya Sabha. Hence, a joint sitting was held in 2002. So in all the three cases, there was a disagreement, and in the joint session, the bill was considered and the bill was passed. Okay. So kindly remember this point here. See, the rest of the points I have already discussed with you. Whenever there is a disagreement between both the houses of the parliament over an ordinary bill, we'll be going for the joint session of the parliament, and that joint session is summoned by the President of India. But the joint session is presided over by the speaker. I told you. Speaker is a person who is the head of the Lok Sabha. So today look at Lok Sabha. There is a person by name Sumitra Mahajan. She is the person who takes the complete control of the Lok Sabha. And in the Rajya Sabha, you have Hamid Ansari, the Vice President of India, who is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So he holds the complete control over the Rajya Sabha issues. But when it comes to the joint session, the constitution is asking the speaker to preside. Very important, kindly remember. The joint session of the parliament is summoned by the President of India, and the joint session is presided over by the speaker. Very, very important. Just remember these 2 points. Now, let me go ahead and I will continue the discussion. Look at this. The speaker presides over the joint session of the parliament. Now, look at this. Another article I am talking to you regarding the address of the president. Address in the sense regarding the speech of the president. So it is not just there is a president of India. It is not just the president will be giving his considerations or giving his consent. He is not just making the bills into the laws. But the president is also expected to come to the parliament and he has to deliver a speech. That is nothing but addressing both the houses of the parliament. Kindly see here, when I am using the word both the houses of the parliament, the president may address either of the houses, or the president may address both the houses put together. But kindly see here, I am not, when both the houses are put together means the members will be sitting together here. But I am not using the word joint session for that. Whenever, of course, normally, generally, the people will be using the word joint session only. But the purpose of joint session under article number 108 is that to resolve the deadlock. That is the basic idea. Otherwise, if you want, you can observe, right? It's just 1 month away. In the month of February, the parliament session will begin. So during that time, the President of India will come to the parliament and he will address both the houses of the parliament. What is the meaning of this? Say you have a government in India and that government is headed by the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister and every minister, they are appointed by the President of India. Meaning I can say whatever the government that is presented today, that is the government of the president. And on his behalf, for the better functioning, the president has appointed some of the ministers, and those ministers are supposed to function for the welfare of the people. But how exactly the government is functioning, what the government did last year, what the government is going to do in the forthcoming year, that should be disclosed to the people of the nation by the President of India. In this context, The Constitution is asking the President of India to come to the Parliament every year. But when the President should come to the Parliament, that is important. Constitution made it very, very clear that the President is expected to come to the Parliament and address the Parliament before the beginning of the first session every year. I told you what is the meaning of the session. But now I am using the word before the beginning of the first session every year. When I am using the word year, here I am referring to the calendar year. Year may be financial year, calendar year, or academic year. In this context, the meaning of the year is the calendar year. So starting from January 1st onwards, up to December 31st. Hopefully everybody knows this. Calendar year begins on January 1st and ends on December 31st. So starting from January 1st onwards, whenever the Parliament session takes place, during that time, the President is expected to come to the Parliament and he has to address the Parliament. So this is the compulsion. So see here, if you want, you can observe in the month of February also. The Parliament session will begin with the address of the President, number one. Number two, when it comes to the addressing the Parliament, the Constitution is also asking the President of India to address the Parliament before the beginning of the first session, immediately after the general election. The general election means the Lok Sabha elections. You know this point. And whenever the Lok Sabha elections are held, the new Lok Sabha is constituted. I told you already. So this is the 16th Lok Sabha we have in India, meaning so far 16 times the Lok Sabha election was conducted. And before the beginning of the first session of the 16th Lok Sabha, the President is expected to address both the houses of the Parliament, meaning the Constitution is making it a compulsion on the part of the President to speak to the members, two times, at least one time every year. But when it comes to the election year, the President is also coming to the Parliament just immediately before the commencement of the session, after the new Lok Sabha is constituted. So these are the things that are mentioned by the Constitution, and we are following all the provisions in the Constitution. That is the reason why the President regularly comes to the Parliament every year, at least once. Kindly remember, when I am saying commencement of the first session, it does not mean the President should not come to the Parliament later. At any time, the President may come and he may deliver the address. But whatever I told you, these are the compulsions. And these two things you already know this. For example, look at this. These things you already know. The President nominates 12 members to the Rajya Sabha from the persons with special knowledge or practical experience in science, arts, literature, and social service. These points we have already seen. In the similar manner, the President also nominates not more than 2 members to the Lok Sabha from the Anglo-Indian community. If, in the opinion of the President, that the community is not adequately represented in the Lok Sabha, then only the President will be nominating. Kindly remember, even this nomination will also take place only on the recommendation that is given by the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. These points you know. Now, so look at this, another important point. The President decides the question of disqualification of the members. The President decides the question of disqualification of the members of the Parliament in consultation with the Election Commission. What do you mean by this? Look at this. In India, we have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and the elections are conducted by the Election Commission. But the Constitution is also giving qualifications to the members of the Lok Sabha and qualifications to be the members of the Rajya Sabha. And the same Constitution is also talking in terms of the disqualifications. So when I come to this article number 102, I'll tell you what are these disqualifications. Just because a person gets elected to the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, it does not mean that he will continue for 5 years. Because of any reason, if he is attracted by any disqualification that is mentioned in the Constitution under article number 102, then the person will be disqualified from the membership. And the Constitution is giving that power to the President of India, but the President is expected to consult the Election Commission. And after consulting the Election Commission, the President takes the decision, and the member of the Lok Sabha and the member of the Rajya Sabha may be disqualified. But the disqualification will be done only by the President. Meaning, apart from doing so many functions, the President is also empowered to disqualify any member of the Lok Sabha, any member of the Rajya Sabha in consultation with the Election Commission. Am I clear? Now, next point. Look at this. Budget is introduced in the Lok Sabha with the prior permission of the President. Already we have understood some points like money bills. All money bills are introduced in the Lok Sabha with the prior permission of the President. And when it comes to the budget, budget is also a money bill, and that budget will be introduced in the Lok Sabha with the prior permission of the President. I told you what is the meaning of the money bill. Let me not repeat this again here. Now, next one. This also we know under article number 3 of the Indian Constitution, there is a procedure for the creation of the new states, formulation of the new states. And during that time, we have understood that any bill which is meant for the creation of the new states will be introduced in the Parliament only on the prior permission of the President. Look at this. A bill which is meant for the creation of a new state or altering the boundaries of the existing states is introduced in the Parliament with the prior permission of the President. Right? This point we already know this. Next point also we know a bill becomes an act only after the assent of the President. These points I told you on day number 1 itself. Without assent means consent. Consent means signature of the President. In the absence of the consent or assent of the President, a bill never becomes an act. Am I clear? Next one. Look at this. So this also we know. The President has the right to return the bill for the reconsideration. And you know the meaning of the reconsideration. And when it comes to the second time, he must sign the bill. What is the meaning of this? We have seen. Once a bill is passed by both the houses of the Parliament, the President may have any objections on this. So during that time, the President may be sending the bill back to the reconsideration. So again, the bill comes to the originating house. And because the objections have been raised by the President of India, both the houses are expected to look into the objections raised by the President of India, and after that again there will be a discussion, again there will be a voting. But this time, just because the objections are raised by the President of India, it does not mean that both the houses must consider those objections and modify the bill. Hence, with or without amendments, if the bill is passed again means the second time I am talking about, again the bill will be forwarded to the President of India, and the second time President cannot send back the bill. Meaning only one time, rather not more than one time, the President has the power to send back the bill for reconsideration. Once it is reconsidered with or without amendments, the President shall sign the bill. The President shall give his assent. That is the basic idea. And whatever I spoke to you just now, that is with respect to only ordinary bills and not with respect to the money bills or constitution amendment bills. We have seen this point, right? Now, some certain points we learned in the class number 1 itself. Okay. Now, president cannot return the money bills and constitution amendment bills. Yes, this point we already know. The president promulgates ordinances when the parliament is not in the session. So this is what is mentioned under article number 123. Now look at this. So let me just remove this particular point here. It is valid for a period of 6 months or something. Let me remove this. Now, look at this. The ordinance must be passed by the parliament within 6 weeks from its reassembly. But kindly remember, what is the meaning of this ordinance? Now, if you want to make any act, what is the procedure? We introduce the bill, we pass the bill, president will sign, it will become an act. And you introduce the bill, you discuss the bill, you vote the bill only during the session, but not during the recess. But sometimes what happens is that the parliament may be under recess. There is an urgency for the government where they wanted to come out with certain acts that needs to be implemented immediately. We cannot wait for a long period of time. The one thing that is available is that wait for a period of time till the parliament is summoned, then introduce the bill, discuss the bill and pass the bill. But the situation may be so urgent and the government wants an act immediately. But if you want to have an act, you have to follow the procedure 1 to 3, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, President. But the situation may be very, very sensitive and the government wants to go with an act. During that time, the constitution has provided a provision called ordinance. In the simplest term, when I use the word ordinance, ordinance is nothing but a temporary act. When it is temporary act, what exactly happens is that the temporary act, the so-called ordinance, will be issued by the president only during the recess. The constitution made so many restrictions on this. An ordinance or a temporary act will be issued by the President of India only during the recess, not during the session. Number 1. Even when the cabinet recommends for this issuing the ordinance, then during the time the president will be issuing this ordinance. Since Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have not come into the picture, this particular ordinance is valid only for a limited period of time. Kindly remember this. If the ordinance is issued, means the parliament is not in the session. If today parliament is not in the session, means the parliament session must begin within a period of 6 months from the date of issue of the ordinance, because the gap between any 2 sessions of the parliament should not be more than 6 months. So this is the time limitation that is given by the Constitution of India. Hopefully you are getting it. That's the reason the moment the ordinance is issued by the President of India, that comes into existence and it will be implemented immediately. Just like any act, it will also have its validity. But the moment the parliament session begins, from the day of beginning of the parliament session, within a period of 6 weeks, the ordinance is supposed to be cleared and passed by both the houses of the parliament. Then only it will become an act, then only it becomes a permanent act. Kindly remember, Constitution has used the words 6 weeks. Ordinance is valid from the date of issue. But the moment the parliament reassembles, from the date of reassembly, it should be cleared within a period of 6 weeks. Otherwise, the ordinance is considered to be cancelled. And before it is passed by both the houses of the parliament, The president has every right to withdraw the ordinance at any time. Everything is left to the president of India. Again, on the advice of the cabinet. That is the meaning of the ordinance. Some more points are there with me. I'll show it to you after some time. But let me continue this discussion now. Look at this. The president lays the reports of CAG, UPSC, Finance Commission, etc. before the parliament. What do you mean by this here? Again, important. The president lays the reports of the Comptroller and Auditor General, Union Public Service Commission, Finance Commission, etc. before the parliament. What do you mean by this? Just remember one point. These are all the important offices that are present in India, and all these people are appointed by the president. I'll show it to you immediately. And all these people are appointed by the president of India, and all the institutions are expected to function, and every year or periodically they are supposed to submit the report to the president of India. And what the president does? And the president places those reports before the parliament, meaning the reports will be made public once it is placed in the parliament. The people of the nation have every right to know what exactly is happening in the government. Hence, every mechanism has been provided by the parliament, by the constitution. That is the reason why, if a report is submitted to the president of India, that is not a confidential one. The moment the president places the report before the parliament, that will become open and that becomes public. Okay, now just wait for a moment here. I'll just open the document again. I'll just show you some points. So these are the points what we have seen that are with respect to the legislative powers. Okay, just now we have seen. But I would like to show one thing. There are certain things called executive powers. Executive powers of the president. Now look at this. When I'm talking about the executive powers, these are the powers of the president with respect to the appointment of various members. That's the reason at the central level you take up any important office, maybe the Supreme Court, to maybe the Union Public Service Commission, maybe Election Commission, Finance Commission, or anything. Every person is appointed by the President of India. But kindly remember, the President is making the appointments on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. So in the executive powers, we'll see what are the important appointments made by the President of India. I'll just show you the document. While looking at that, we can have a discussion. But remember each and every one. Right, look at this. All executive actions of the government of India are formally taken on the name of the President of India. Look at this. What are the appointments made by the President? Look at this. The President appoints a Prime Minister, meaning the most important man of the nation. The most important man of the nation, the Prime Minister himself, is appointed by the President. Next one. All other ministers are also appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. Kindly remember, on the advice of the Prime Minister means every minister is a choice of the Prime Minister. And the Constitution has deliberately made this particular provision. That is the reason the President is empowered to appoint a person as the Prime Minister. During that time, the President may take a decision. But with respect to appointing any other minister, President is not expected to take any decision on his own. During that time, who should be a minister will be decided by the Prime Minister, and accordingly the President is expected to act. This is because in reality the functions are performed by the Prime Minister of India. Hence the Constitution has expected that let the Prime Minister has his own team. The Prime Minister may have confidence on few people, and let those members will become the ministers. This is the basic idea. Am I clear? That is the reason why free hand has been given to the Prime Minister. Later, he will pick up few members. The list will be forwarded to the President of India, and the President will be appointing only those members as the ministers. Am I clear? Now, look at this. The President allocates. This is the S. So the President allocates a business among the ministers. What do you mean by this business? Rather, first of all, for example, see here, we have so many ministers that are present in India. You will come across with the finance minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley. Arun Jaitley is a person who is responsible for the entire finance ministry. And the operations of Arun Jaitley with respect to finance ministry is nothing but the business, meaning the activities of the government. And once a minister is appointed, what functions he should perform, and what is his department will also be decided by the President of India. That is called the allocation of the business. Manohar Parrikar is the defense minister. That is the allocation of the business. Arun Jaitley is the minister for finance, allocation of the business. Smriti Irani, HRD, that is the allocation of the business. Like this, each minister will be allocated the job, and that is called the allocation of the business, and that allocation is done by the President of India. All right. Next, look at this. Apart from this, the President appoints Attorney General of India, one of the very, very important persons in India. Kindly remember, this person is considered to be the first law officer of the nation. Very important person, and he is an advisor to the government of India, and the Prime Minister and the cabinet seeks his advice with respect to the legal matters. And the President also appoints another important office. This one is called Comptroller and Auditor General. All these things we'll see in our future discussions. Look at this. The President also appoints the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners. Kindly remember all the points, please. The President appoints the chairman and members of the Union Public Service Commission, UPSC. This is a body at the central level which will conduct the examination for central government services. It will also conduct examination for all India services. And this is a body where we have a chairman and other members, and everybody is appointed by the so-called the President. Similarly, we have a chairman and members of the Joint Public Service Commission. It is called the JPSC, right? JPSC means what? It is just like a state public service commission, but it is conducting examination for at least 2 states. That is called the Joint Public Service Commission. When we come to the topic, we'll have a detailed discussion. But in the Joint Public Service Commission also, we have a chairman and members, and everybody is appointed by the President. Similarly, I also have the chairman and members of the Finance Commission. Finance Commission is mentioned under article number 280. It will recommend for the division of taxes between central government and state governments. And there is a chairman and 4 other members. Every person is appointed by the so-called the President. And if you look at each state, every state is headed by a governor, and all the governors are appointed by the President. Similarly, if you look at the union territories, the head of the union territory is called administrator, or he may be called lieutenant governor. Lieutenant governor. So the terminology may be anything. But they are appointed by the so-called the President of India. Look at this. The President also appoints the commissions to investigate into the conditions of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes. Kindly see here, we have SC Commission, that is Scheduled Caste Commission, Scheduled Tribes Commission, other backward classes commission. We have the Minorities Commission. We have National Women's Commission. Sometimes we'll come across with the commission language, that is called Language Commission. So whatever the commissions you have at the central level, For majority of them, whatever the names I have taken now, so the chairpersons of all these commissions are appointed by the so-called the President of India. Apart from this, the Constitution is also permitting a body called Interstate Council. This is what is mentioned under Article number 263 of the Indian Constitution. And under that one, the President appoints the Interstate Council. And the basic idea is that it promotes the center-state cooperation. And apart from this, the President also has the right to declare an area as a scheduled area. Okay, right? And this is one. And we have already seen the legislative powers. And apart from this, we have the so-called the financial powers. Also, we have we'll see. And later we'll see the judicial powers, diplomatic powers, military powers. So many powers are there. So we'll have a discussion of all these things tomorrow. So let me start the session here. Hope you have followed the session nicely. And this is the last day of the year 2014. We'll say a very, very goodbye to this 2014. And from tomorrow again, the new year begins. Let's begin the new year with a new hopes, a new enthusiasm, and a new dynamism. And our work continues. It goes on and on. So till you become successful. Fine. So thank you so much for being with me this morning. And thank you so much for extending your kind support to me on this particular project. Hopefully it will be a successful project. And it will become successful only when you all become a good civil servants. So once you get into the service, then only that is considered to be a success. Right? You are spending good time in the morning. You are getting up in the early hours. I'm very, very happy for you. So this is a symbol. This is a sign of development rather. I really appreciate every one of you from bottom of my heart. Okay. So I wish you all the very best. And let's begin the new year with a complete positive note and positive attitude. Let's continue our sessions. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow at same time.